Seriously, guys, I don't want to do this. I'm not good in front of a camera, and I didn't get hired for... Oh, fuck. What's up, guys? It's Zach over here at CD Projekt Red. I'm actually the janitor. Bossman's been getting a lot of flack, so they decided to have me come up here and say a few words for you. I'm not really good at this whole apology thing, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit from what Bossman was telling me and try to do my best, so hopefully you guys forgive me. So here goes. Here at CD Projekt Red in the past decade, we've built a reputation of good faith and trust within the gamers. And we decided to take advantage of that to hold on to as many pre-orders of the console version of this game as possible, even though we knew we were releasing it in a broken and unfinished state. You guys didn't seem too happy about that, so sorry, I guess. I mean, it was pretty obvious, but trust me, we had no idea that you guys were going to be this pissed off about it. I'm getting really nervous right now, so I'm going to go clean up a spill downstairs. So yeah, guys, if you want a refund, good luck, I guess, because Sony and all of the other distributors had no idea that this game was going to be such a total flop. Oops. So yeah, see you later. Hopefully I never do this again. Bye. Are you gonna buy me lunch now?
Shit. I thought you were gone.
You're not alone in thinking me dead. Can't talk right now.
When CyberPunk Red, the game development part of CyberPunk was born, it added something important to the principle, the ambition to make the best games in the world. It became our mission and something that guided us up to here.
Oh, you like what you see? You like what you see while I'm restarting that audio recording there, Sonny? I see you peeking. You don't gotta deny it. In my last Cyberpunk 2077 video, we covered the PC version, and in that video I said while it was obviously an unfinished and underwhelming in some areas game, I still found it to be a fun, engaging experience that offered us an open world that we've never really seen in video games before. That brings us to the PS4 version, a version that was so problematic it was pulled from the PlayStation Store, a version so unwanted that when CDPR issued refunds, they just told the people to keep the game. So I took it upon myself to pick up a copy of this when it was on sale, and I had to see for myself. What did version 1.0 players get when they popped this into their PS4? What did people get when they unwrapped this thing on Christmas? Well, I'm going to look at the version that CDPR intended when they printed on the discs, and we're going to see what the PS4 version offers. So without further ado, let's get into it.
When I started CyberPunk 25 years ago, one of its founding principles was honest and direct communication with gamers.
Before we dive in, let me make a quick apology. CD Projekt Red wouldn't allow us to use our own recorded gameplay for this review.
Based on that legacy of genuine and honest communication, you've trusted us and pre-ordered our game.
But that restriction is only temporary, so when it comes out, we'll publish a new version of this review with our own footage to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
But the question continues to come back to the deception that appears to have been employed by CD Projekt Red to hide the PS4 and the Xbox One version.
Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
Come on, how about live service? Look at that. You don't even have to finish the game. You release it in whatever state you want. It'll make you feel so
For
good.
real? I don't have to finish
finish the game?
The entire game as a whole felt rushed, shallow, and unfinished.
And that's not how we should accept our games at release.
The game of the year, except the versions that are total junk.
This is why we started sending console review keys on the 8th of December.
CD Projekt Red wouldn't allow us to use our own recorded gameplay for this review.
The PS4 and Xbox version of the game should have been dropped completely.
If you want to talk about the PS4 version we played at launch, it's like a 2! A fucking 2! It was nearly unplayable before being fixed.
Cyberpunk 2077 just got pulled from the PlayStation Store.
I'm just super freaking disappointed with you, CD Projekt Red. I expected more.
I don't think the situation around Cyberpunk 2077 can get any worse.
Fuck, man. This one hurt.
So we're not even into the main menu yet, and I'm already seeing a problem with this game. You see this little intro video that's playing here? This is actually supposed to be voiced over by a radio announcer.
Good morning, Night City! Yesterday's body count lottery rounded out to a solid and sturdy 30.
In the PS4 version, this is how it sounds. So you have this music track playing with no radio announcer behind it, with all of these actions going on, and it just feels kind of awkward and out of place because there's supposed to be something else in there. And also, it's doing it at a very choppy frame rate.
One officer down, so I guess you're all screwed, cause the NCPD will not let that go.
Dick.
As we start off the game here and we get into our little character selection screen, you may notice that everything looks a little soft if you've been playing a lot of other PS4 games. And that's because Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS4 and base Xbox One are targeting a healthy 720p. To put that into perspective, games are usually targeting 1080p on these consoles, and this offers significantly more screen real estate to pump more pixels in and give you a sharper, more detailed image. 720p was a resolution that the base Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were targeting almost 10 years ago. After we wrap up our character creation and we get into the introduction of the game, we get a nice shot of V showing off these bouncy shadows on his arm. And after a brief conversation, we're jumping into the game and we start getting our first slice of jank as we try to walk around this bar. Frame rates are wildly inconsistent, the game starts stuttering, and nothing really feels quite right. And this is just a small bar with a few NPCs in it, so if that's any indicator of what we're going to experience into this massive open world, not looking too good. So I leave the bar, walk out, and get into my first NPC interaction, and what do you know, their mouth isn't moving. So to continue the story here, I'm jumping into this car to do this little ride-along thing. I decide to skip a few scenes, and this is kind of what happens.
Dick.
We never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
By the way, that little loading screen that just happened in between this scene is something that happens really frequently in this game. So after we finish the prologue to the prologue, which to its credit was relatively bug-free, we move on to this action sequence of you and Jackie doing cyberpunk stuff in the city. Would have been cool if these were actually playable missions, but whatever. I remember Digital Foundry praising this little real-time footage for being fairly technically impressive, showing off all of these environments continuously loading instantly in real time. And as you can tell, the PS4 just is not handling this well. In this scene, you can just clearly see characters and objects popping in and out, and it is just struggling to keep up with these scenes. And the previously absent radio announcer actually does make an appearance in this scene. However, everything he says is kind of wildly inconsistent with the gameplay towards the end. And this is supposed to kind of be the scene that's hyping you up and getting you ready to roll in the Cyberpunk universe and start your first mission off. And the immersion's kind of just completely broken at this point. We're not even half an hour into the game.
NC's Legends! Know where you'll find most of them? The graveyard! NC's Legends! Know where you'll find most of them? The graveyard!
Before we get into the first main mission of this game and really start to dig into the meat and potatoes of it, or treat it to a nice little gameplay tutorial. And I'm going to save most of my thoughts about this gameplay for the following mission, but this tutorial is where a lot of the problems of Cyberpunk on the console really started to rear its ugly head. Keep in mind that Cyberpunk 2077 was kind of being made with modern solid-state drives in mind, with mechanical hard drives as an afterthought. This is partially the reason why when you try to play these older console versions on the newer consoles, the PS5 and Xbox Series X, they run significantly better. If you remember any of the talk about these new consoles having these super fast load times, this is a prime example of what that means. Because this tutorial mission is just chock full of loading screens, sometimes seconds in between each other, and it's just infuriatingly bad. Every time there's this little flashback sequence or you just kind of flash to a new area in the tutorial, you gotta wait through a loading screen. And this pretty much happens throughout the whole game, so imagine Grand Theft Auto 5's initial loading time, you know, that really long one before you start the game, but this happening consistently throughout the entire game. Pretty fun. One of the most infuriating things about this is that loading screens in video games up to this point have started to get really good about hiding their loading screens behind gameplay elements or videos. Not this one. This one has no problem with just slapping you with a black screen randomly for a 40-second load time. Nothing interesting happening in between this time whatsoever. Of course, this isn't really a problem on the PC version, but we're not talking about the PC version.
Stand on the platform and we'll move on. Hacking's the next item on the menu. Might...
Oh, fuck my c***. Alright, so we're done with the training mission and the training wheels are off, baby. We're ready to go and see what the Cyberpunk experience is all about. So we jump into our first mission and things are already getting kind of weird. You jump into this elevator with Jackie, and even though you're both in there, it kind of takes a minute for the elevator to allow you to hit the button. Yeah, the audio glitched out here, I don't know why. All from T-Bug, who is apparently having a stroke because her body is just kind of like completely still. Her face is numb, and even though she's talking, you can't see anything that she's saying.
Target could have possibly flatlined already. Not sure you're in time.
So you leave the elevator and then you start creeping around the apartment complex, and then the audio mix just seems to start getting progressively worse. It's like every single audio track, volume, sound effect just get turned up to 11 and nothing blends in right. First he has me do this apology video, then he comes up here and shits on the floor.
In 2077, what makes someone a criminal?
Hey, what's up, man? Telling me why hold on a sec. Could you guys turn that music down? Jesus Christ. Oh, great. Now the TV's playing and I don't have the remote for it. Oh, hold on. We got this loud advertisement in the background. I don't know. I can't hear you, man. You're gonna have to give me a pull back.
Nice.
I know this was kind of slightly a problem on PC, but this is just significantly worse.
On your toes. More bodies incoming. They're almost on you.
So you and Jackie take out a couple of guards, and this is where the game really starts to fall apart. Oh, hey, look, there's an NPC floating for no reason. All right, whatever. And then you get into this room with a bunch of guards, and then Jackie just decides to bust out a T-pose for no good reason whatsoever, but okay, you can do that, sure, fine. They don't seem to mind. So then I try to pick up this med kit that's on the table right in front of me, but for some reason, I can't pick it up. And then I start to get into a gunfight that just kind of turns into a slideshow. No, this isn't your internet connection buffering. No, this isn't the fault of my capture device or my editing rendering software techniques. This is literally the game just kind of stuttering and dropping frames like GoldenEye 64 multiplayer.
We never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
Hey, hold on, this shit ain't funny. It ain't funny, but it is.
So that was a fucking lie.
To kind of explain what's going on here without getting too technical about it, because I'm not qualified to do that, your frames per second, or your FPS, is what not only dictates how smooth the game looks, but how quickly your actions on your controller respond with what you're looking at on the game. So when you're having these frame rate spikes and they're dropping and they're coming back up and they're dropping and it's stuttering, you're obviously not having a very good time. It's very hard to aim and it doesn't look very pleasing to your eye on the screen. In the PC version, I had noted that the controller options had these really weird turning bonus settings, which made the controller feel, quite frankly, horrible to use. And my theory here is that it's some kind of lag compensation for the console version, because this just feels so horrible and wildly inconsistent They had to do something to make up for it, and I feel like this, coupled with copious amounts of aim assist, was CDPR's solution for the console versions of this game. This aim assist thing was interesting because despite all the performance inconsistencies of the PS4 version, it was still extremely easy to aim and kill enemies. I would say maybe even easier than playing with a controller on the PC version. You don't really have to worry about aiming when the game just kind of gives you copious amounts of aim assist and just locks onto the targets for ya. This is where I noticed that the PS4 version had this really sick exclusive perk where you could reload a gun without taking the magazine out, so that's pretty cool. As we leave the apartment, we get a call from our character whose mouth doesn't move. Actually, it seems like every time I did a phone call within the PS4 version of this game, it never worked, so I'm gonna try not to bring it up again, or at least limit my amount of times I mention it, because that's just a common issue with the PS4 version.
We never ever intended
getting caught. Dick.
Jackie drives you out of the apartment complex, or at least he tries his best, because for some reason he just kind of starts rotating in his seat for no reason, not matching up with the driving, and he's not even holding the steering wheel at this point. This cop's textures are really bad.
Let's just focus on getting home.
And then Jackie drops you off at your apartment, but not before he drives through a couple of closed gates and slams you into a wall.
We never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
I guess this is just how Jackie drives, man.
He scratched your baby up pretty bad.
He doesn't have a car, but he has a motorcycle. I'm starting to wonder if this dude even has a license. At this point, before I go into my apartment, I try to shoot a couple of NPCs to trigger police, which seem to do that in the PC version, but here, in this whole prologue section of the game, I couldn't seem to spawn police whatsoever, no matter how many people I walked around and shot. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter that I said shoot it. I don't know, I thought it was funny, so I just wasn't gonna cut that part out.
Mercy. Bruh.
Why are you running?
Bruh. 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 Bruh.
So, looks like we found
We
never ever intended for anything like this.
Yeah, that job sounds great, but I'm busy shooting innocent civilians, so I'll have to call you back. As we're taking this elevator down, you can see you get a good view of T-Stroke calling you and the elevator improperly loading, and it just kind of seems this is where the game decided to completely not give a fuck any longer. What you'll be seeing from this point on is what CD Projekt Red referred to as running surprisingly well, otherwise known as a complete lie to anybody who pre-ordered this on PS4. I know the whole E3 gameplay preview comparison thing has been beaten to death, but I just have to mention it here. In the E3 gameplay preview, when you're getting to see the city for the first time, you're just given a sensory overload from this bustling city full of life and things going on around you, and it looks beautiful. On the PS4 version, you're given a oil painting as the game just tries to cobble itself together to meet this 720p resolution it's struggling to hit. While the game's trying to cobble together some sort of visual representation of a city, it's also simultaneously having a competition with itself to see how poorly it can run before you either return it or vomit. I haven't felt this motion sick from a game since I was playing in VR. The performance is seriously so bad that it makes literally anything in this game unenjoyable and not fun. And we barely scratched the surface. We're literally just being able to finally step into a car and drive it for the first time, and everything just feels so horrible, you just can't take it in. You can't enjoy it. And when you can, the city's just dead. There's like no traffic around when I'm driving, and it's just struggling to load itself together. There's barely any NPCs, and when there are, they're just kind of stupid. Everybody has beaten the actual gameplay. Motherfucker. I just wanted to point out that off camera I called the cat stupid because he started clawing up the couch. I don't actually think he's stupid, and I'm sorry, I was just upset. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. The gameplay elements have been picked apart and discussed many times by multiple people who are way more qualified to do it than me, so I'm not really trying to get into too much of that. I'm just kind of trying to show you my perspective of just how bad of an experience this was for me. But the one thing that became undeniably obvious as I finally started to move along the city is that it just seems that the game just cannot seem to keep up with itself.
It's Heelys, and it's all about fun. So cruise around with your friends, or simply show off and start new trends. It's Heelys. Walk, roll, or create the next move. Live on the edge.
I got to this building that I needed to enter, and the door just would not open for some reason because it didn't recognize that I was there, I guess. And then I got to the Ripper Dock for the first time, and the game nearly shit itself trying to load all of that in.
Believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this.
Vicky, spry as ever, you old ripper.
Jackie forgot how to use his mouth. Dex gave me a shard to look at as I was riding in the car to talk to him, and it started to lag so bad it was impossible to look at. In this sequence, after you're done talking to him, Dex is supposed to leave, but he kind of got stuck in the street because the AI doesn't know how to drive.
Well, what's Dex gonna do? Ride around in his limo, chat chicks up on the hollow?
And again, it seemed that the police were absolutely nowhere to be found as I gave every NPC that I managed to find lead poisoning. Did I mention that there's barely any NPCs or traffic in this game now? If you need further examples of the game just struggling to keep up with itself, check out the first mission I do for Dex. I'm supposed to be escaping this building full of people that want me dead, and I'm just able to completely run right past them before they're able to process the fact that I'm right in front of them. That's also including, but not limited to, when the mission finally ends, Jackie decides to show me his sick hands-free motorcycle skills before plowing into my car out in the distance. The game for some reason still thinks I'm in hot pursuit mode because I hang up on Dex when I'm trying to talk to him, even though I had just obviously completed the mission and I needed to talk to him.
Sorry, really gotta go.
Check out the burning car that got stuck in my way, just kind of randomly flipping over and then staying destroyed as I call for it in the background. I tried to steal a car and I just ended up being a passenger.
Bruh.
And then we have the obligatory first game crash.
How would you know?
I like to know everything about the people I work with.
We never ever intended for anything like this.
And then the second game crash.
Can I get in?
No.
Can I get in?
No.
And then the HUD elements just not loading. Man, just look at how good this game runs. Surprisingly well, actually. I also noticed this weird ghosting effect trailing behind me whenever I spun around or I was driving a vehicle, which just layers onto the bad visual elements of the console version of this game. That's my disc. If I tried to point out every single visual element and bug that happened to me as I played through the first couple of hours of this game, this video would extremely overstay its welcome. That's not an excuse not to do it, that's just because I don't want to make the video too long, guys. I swear, I promise. In your first big gameplay mission, you got a heist with Jackie where you gotta escape the hotel.
How do I look?
I was able to do this just by running past everybody in a matter of a minute. Unfortunately, this didn't work out too well for me as I made my way to the escape car because the fucking thing wouldn't let me in. But at least I could open the trunk of it.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Later on, I also discovered that I could just get into a car in that parking lot and mow over all of the NPCs shooting. So I think that was a little bit of an oversight there.
We never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
Towards the end of the mission, I was able to soft lock myself out of the objective because a barrier didn't load up in time, and I was able to just freely explore the city even though I wasn't supposed to at that time. Yeah, sorry Dex, I knew you were waiting on me in my but I gotta go walk around for no reason. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. I really enjoyed the Johnny Silverhand flashbacks where you can do things like broken turret sections and animations from guns not working like they're supposed to.
Tower crumbles, chaos, screaming roll credits.
To be honest with you guys, I don't feel like people were hard enough on the PS4 version of this game because literally nothing works right in it. Take this gameplay clip as a prime example. Everything from the audio to the gameplay elements to the animations are completely botched.
You hear me? I need your help. You hear me? I need your help.
And you can take this and apply it to the rest of the game. I don't even know how this thing would be playable from start to finish, to be honest with you. I have no idea how this passed QA testing. And I'm supposed to believe that the top executives didn't know that this was a problem. I don't feel like my gameplay or anybody else's really does the justice of how bad this is. I didn't really understand it for myself until I played it for myself. And the only entertainment value I found from the PS4 version was just being able to laugh at how bad it was.
Myself and the board are the final decision makers, and it was our call to release the game. Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen. Ever intended, 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 ever intended.
If this is how the PS4 version of Cyberpunk 2077 was intended to come out, it should have been canceled. And these discs should have been recalled and put back on store shelves when everything was patched and fixed. Because the consumers were shipped a broken, barely playable mess. The only credit I can give it is that it boots up and runs. The consumers were lied to, and they were shipped something that I would find hard for anybody to enjoy. People that can usually look past the bugs, like, for example, my girlfriend could walk in at any point and tell that I was playing the horrible version of this game. This was intentionally left out of reviewers' hands so we couldn't see how bad it is. They weren't allowed to show gameplay, and we were intentionally shown misleading PS4 gameplay up to this game's release that was obviously not representative of what we got. It's a shame that all of the developers poured their heart and soul into this game for years and are still consistently working on it to make it a somewhat enjoyable experience, just for it to have this botched of a release. So
Gave them to my guy yesterday to smooth over the dents after our dust up.
Thanks, Jack. Much appreciated.
that's pretty much all I had to say on the PS4 version of Cyberpunk. It's kind of neat that I have the objectively worst version of this game permanently printed on a disc, but also it's just really unfortunate that it had to come out like this. I don't recommend this version of the game to anybody unless you're like me and you're weird and you kind of just like seeing the worst versions of games. But all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out my Patreon and my other videos if this one interested you. And yeah, man, pretty disappointing, but just wanted to document it for myself. That's all I got, baby. Freely explore the city when I wasn't able to. Towards the end of the mission, I don't know, why are you always yelling? Yep. Without getting into too much about screen realization, as we start off the game here and we get into our character collect, that modern games up to this point have really been good about hiding their gameplay. The training wheels are off and we're good to So you leave the elevator and you start creeping the